Hi, this is a foreigner in the Philippines, really looking at whether the changes that have happened in the last few months of President Duterte and his Philippines. So, are things changing? Well, they are definitely changing. I've seen changes which in some ways are good, in some ways things that I see that are not welcoming may be a great encouragement to a lot of people. One of the things that I see is that I see police, and I see police in Taliban. Now Taliban is the nearest town to us. It's a thriving town, but you don't have all the facilities in that town that you would have everywhere. You can't get the tracking on your car aligned. You have to drive 2.5 hours to do something like that. So facilities are not really sophisticated. Right now, I don't mind that. You know, we have one main supermarket, and that is adequate, but it's not wonderful. And very often, one of the things that you hear the most is we're out of stock. So you have to. My friend Philip went into Duterte'S once. That's the supermarket, and he noticed that they had Campbell's soup. Campbell's chicken noodle soup. He bought every one of the cans of chicken noodle soup that were on the shelf. So I have another friend, Dan, who, if he sees anything that's in stock, he will buy 2 or 3 of them because they may not be there when he gets back to do them the same again. So things are moderately convenient. We can now go to an ATM and we can put in an international ATM, in my case an ATM card. I don't have a credit card. I don't want a credit card. If I don't have the money there, then I don't get it. Now, some of the things are still the same. The ATM can be out of money. It just seems an impossible thing for someone who's living in America to go to an ATM machine and it says, sorry, out of cash. When was the last time that if you're watching this in America, when was the last time you went to an ATM machine and had 50 people waiting to get their money? Or when was it offline? These things they're not often suffered in the West, but they are suffered here. It's frequently offline, frequent brownouts, all of these kinds of things happen. So we're quite used to those things. We don't suffer them gladly, but we do have to suffer them. Well, one of the changes that I've noticed, which yes I'm okay with it, and yet I'm not, and that is I see police on the streets. Now, when I say I see police on the streets, I've actually seen one police car. I've seen one police car, and they were pulling up a motorist for some reason or other, and they were looking. Probably it was some kind of illegally registered car or something, and they'd noticed something. That was the only time since I'd been here. I've lived here for over 2 years. That's the only time that I've seen a police car and actually talking to a motorist. I've never ever been approached by a policeman, and I'd have to think very hard. In fact, when was the last time I saw a policeman in my local area? And I think that was months ago, and it was just somebody that was visiting the hardware store at the same time as me. That given, I don't know of any great level of crime where I am, but I am one of those people, I admit, who go along and don't see crime, whereas other people that I know, they go along and they're seeing crime all the time. Well, there's a drug deal going on over there, and I say, where? And so maybe I got my head in the clouds. But my wife loves to watch the news every night, and I just asked her, have you noticed that there is as much crime being reported? And she admits that there isn't. So we're talking
No, there is. It's not like before. Usually the reported now is the people died because they're related in drugs.
Right.
But before, the reported the news is about killing innocent people. So that's the difference. There's still crime, but it's just a bad one, and it's not like worse before. Rape in the street, 2-year-old, 1-year-old,
Right.
some drivers
Well, I used to see,
raping the passenger.
yeah, and I used to see those security cameras that were placed around the city, mostly in Manila, and it would show robberies of cell phones, where men would just be going up to women and often brutally relieving them of their cell phone. They'd be able to spot an expensive cell phone from yards away, and they'd go up even to groups of women. I remember one, and just take the cell phone. And when the woman didn't want to give it, boy, she was thrust to the ground, and it wasn't nice. I don't see any of those anymore.
Yeah, I think there's still a little, but not like before. The robbery in cell phone, the bags, not like before, because we admit it happens because of drugs.
Well, I also used to see, in fact, just before President Duterte was elected and installed, I used to see that, didn't they have a whole spate of robberies by people on motorcycles?
Yeah.
And what would happen is that the pillion rider, the passenger, would go in, and the man on the motorcycle would wait outside with the engine running, obviously. The robbery would be done, possibly with a gun, and then run back out onto the motorcycle and gone, and wouldn't be held up by traffic if they were in a car. So I don't see any of those anymore.
Yeah.
In fact, at one time, they legislated in Manila that you were not allowed to carry a pillion passenger.
Yeah, and I think there are some towns in Manila that they have specific, that you can only ride a passenger if it's only your wife.
If you're
There's a proof that it's your wife.
related in
Yeah.
related
Or
in
daughter or son.
Yes.
To avoid those kind
To
of...
avoid that kind of robbery.
Yeah.
That's how much it was. I don't see any of those anymore, and I don't hear anything about pillion passengers and whether they
Or
are...
maybe they're part of those who've been killed because of drugs. Remember,
Yes.
there's a lot of killings because
Yeah.
of drugs.
Well,
But
there was. It is as Beth says, that the killings that we saw before were people being killed because they didn't want to give up what they owned, and that was what was often the case. So that has changed. Now, what the media seem to be glorifying, or certainly talking a lot about, is that all of these people are being killed. And I heard a reporter claim in a questionnaire to President Duterte that more people had died since he was elected than were killed during the Marcos regime. I would question that, but I'm only questioning it because it sounds so ridiculous, because it just seems like we'd have to be stepping over dead bodies all the time when we were shopping if that were the case. But of course, as I say, my information is anecdotal. I go on what I feel and see in the street. Do I see people being arrested? No. Did I see them being arrested in when I was in LA? Yes, I did. Did I see people getting roughed up? Yes, I did. Was I afraid of the police? Yes, I was. Am I afraid of the police here? No. It's not the same. So if you are thinking that it's worse here than, say, in LA, you would be wrong. So LA, personally, I found that LA was a terrifying place to be. I'm not going on to comparing how people think that if I say anything realistic, if I don't say anything realistic about the Philippines, then I'm avoiding the truth. And if I say something realistic about my experiences in say LA, then I'm just bashing America. It's not true. I'm giving you what my experience was. I lived in Australia for a while. But I don't think I even saw a policeman there. And I lived in Brisbane. I never felt unsafe at any given time. I'd been to China. I'd been and walked in quite poor places in China, in Guangzhou, and I never felt unsafe. I never felt in any kind of danger. And I never feel in any kind of danger here. Do I go out at night in places where people are getting drunk and having a so-called good time? No, I don't. So yeah, I lead a quiet, a pedestrian kind of life. That's true, right? But when I was in LA, I delivered a piece to a place actually in central LA, and I delivered a piece of work. And when I was there, I stopped by a Del Taco. A Del Taco it's a fast food place, the equivalent, for those who don't know. It's Mexican food, you know, what passes for Mexican food. I actually liked Del Taco. When I went into this place, I delivered so that I was on at dusk, about to go dark, not yet dark. But I went in and they actually had an airlock. It was like a bank. We're talking about a fast food place, and I had to put my money into this little airlock, and then the person on the other side opened her side and took the money, and then when I got my order, it was passed out through that same place because it was all bulletproof glass, thick perspex bulletproof glass. Did I feel scared? I got back in my car and I got out of there. I used to hear of people who just got lost, and like one family when I was there, a family who were visiting, didn't know LA very well, and they drove through the wrong area. I'm talking about just a family, a man with his 2 children, and one of his kids was killed by a stray bullet. I never ever see anything like that here. So I'm not feeling any more safe now that Mr. Duterte, or President Duterte, is here, but because I felt safe before. I heard of the occasional, we did hear of one murder. I heard of one murder. But I haven't really heard very much, and I still don't hear very much. So for our little local rural place that we live, things are more about what is being reported, and I don't see, when I go in and suffer through some of the news or something that's on television, it's not as brutal looking as it used to be before President Duterte.
Yeah, and another thing also is there's a curfew now, you know. There's a specific time where people allowed to drink in the street, which is good thing because, you know, people, once there's an alcohol in their mind, their judgment is low, you know. So
Yes.
it's one of the advantage. Yes, there are some crimes in the Philippines, but it's just on the bad people, you know. And the satisfaction rates of President Duterte is high. In other words, Filipinos are satisfied on what he did. The
Well,
change that
at one
what
time,
we
wasn't it up in
wanted.
the 90s?
Yeah, it's 90s, or I think it's 84 now, but it's still in the high, the most
The
higher.
highest it's ever been.
Yeah, since the previous the presidents before. So things change and people are satisfied, and although there are people that not that satisfied because of the crimes, but there's a lot of people and those bad people needs to be out, right? That's the reality. And
Yes.
yeah, it's sad, but that's how it is work now.
Well, certainly things are changing. For those, it's one of those things, isn't it, that if you think about when government changes, how much does it change, say, for my brother-in-law working in a rice field? How much does all of this mean? Well, eventually some people will step up, and there'll be people who are worried about the global situation. They'll be worried about the Chinese. Are they? I even had, I saw one post saying, one post that was aimed at me saying, you are not disillusioned, you are misinformed. You are misinformed if you don't think that the Philippines is heading toward a police state. You are misinformed. Heaven knows I'm not well informed about everything. That what I give you is anecdotal. I give you what I see on the street.
Yeah.
And what I see on the street is, I saw a post. I saw something about Duterte hates America. So does that mean that every American who's thinking about coming out here had better start thinking that he's going to go out on the street and people are going to look at him with hatred? No, because all I know is that I'm not born an American. Okay, I'm an American citizen, right? But when I go out, everybody thinks I'm American because I'm a foreigner, so I must be American, obviously. So, but when I go out, all I know is that people give me so much courtesy and help. If I want anything done, they will help me. When I went into LBC the other day to get something, if anything, I was treated with extra courtesy, you know. In fact, maybe somebody else had to wait because I went in there. I know that a friend of mine, if he travels in a van, he doesn't like to travel in the back of the van, in the seats at the passenger vans. And the driver will actually remove other people. Doesn't sound very fair to me, but he will remove whoever's in the front seat so that my friend can sit in the front. So, if anything, we are still, as Americans, foreigners, we are still being treated with extra courtesy and extra friendliness, that people actually seem to enjoy interacting with Americans. That's my thing. So the main issue of are things improving is that they seem to be improving. On the international, global scene, I wouldn't elect myself to be a great judge of that. I personally have seen President Duterte and how he has presented himself as being a bargaining thing. You know, whenever I went to go around and see if I was going to buy a car and they wanted $10,000 for it, I would go around and offer $6,000. And then they would say, no way am I having $6,000, but now they will be prepared to maybe think about $8,000 or $8,500. So how you front yourself up is important for the subsequent negotiations. That's how I saw it. And I know that Americans have tended to think that they are of a certain level, of a certain importance or altitude as regards the Philippines, and so they act accordingly. Well, the way that I saw President Duterte'S stance was that he was going to put a stop to that. And he certainly did. He certainly unseated everybody's sense of confidence and made them realize that there are other options. May not be wonderful options in the on the global scene, but it did affect how things were going to go in the future. You know, there are people in town that I don't like the way they do business. One hardware store, I don't like the way he does business. I went in there once and I bought something, and it was 750 pesos, and I went in to buy the same thing again 2 weeks later, and I spoke to the owner instead of one of the staff, and he said, "Wait a minute, I'll go find out how much this is going to be." And I said, "Well, it's 750. I bought it now." He came back, he said, "It's 850. I said, "No, you charged me 750 just 2 weeks ago." And he looked at me and he had kind of a smirk on his face, and he said, "It's gone up." In other words, you need it, you buy it. And I didn't like the way that he did business. For a long time I never went back in there. Then when I needed to do business, I went back in and I bought what I needed. So I dealt with a man who I didn't particularly like, didn't particularly respect. And what I'm trying to say is that maybe that's the idea that President Duterte has got as far as going to other countries and expressing some willingness to work and showing the Americans that you may not like me, I may not like you, but we're going to have to do business. That's just my viewpoint, and I'm just a foreigner in the Philippines. Thanks for watching. I hope that you found some of this at least interesting, and we look forward to you seeing us again. Bye for now.